Most people will live their entire lives without ever touching the terrifying power buried inside them, not because they're weak, not because they're doomed, but because they are terrified of the level of discipline required to unlock their real potential. You spend every day navigating a world designed to keep you soft, distracted, and sedated. Every impulse is indulged, every discomfort is avoided, and every moment of silence is filled with noise. You think this is normal. You think this is life, but it's not. It's a cage, one so subtle you don't even feel the bars. But there exists a system, an ancient framework forged in mountain temples, refined by wandering ascetic monks, and later used by elite swordsmiths to turn ordinary humans into calm, unshakable anomalies. Men who could endure freezing rivers without flinching. Men who could repeat a single motion thousands of times without breaking. Men whose presence was so intense that others felt uneasy standing near them. You're about to learn that system. A path designed to strip you down, rebuild you, and weaponize your mind. But here's what no one tells you. Accessing this system demands that you sacrifice every comfortable excuse you've built your identity around. If you're not ready to confront yourself, you should stop now. Because the moment you continue, the old version of you begins to die. If you're still here, then subscribe now. Consider it the first micro-test of your seriousness. And leave a comment with the one habit that has been silently eroding your discipline. It's time to face the truth you keep running from. Daniel Ito was 29 when his collapse began. A normal guy with a normal job, living a life full of tiny betrayals he pretended not to notice. He'd wake up late, sprint through a rushed morning, promise himself he'd start fresh tomorrow, and then repeat the same failures the next day. He scrolled endlessly at night. He broke deadlines at work. He made goals he didn't commit to. Every time he failed, he soothed himself with a lie. I'm trying. You've lived versions of his life. The quiet frustration of knowing you could be better. The sickening moment you catch your own reflection after making yet another excuse. The sinking realization that you haven't changed in months. Daniel's breaking point wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a catastrophe. It was a simple Tuesday morning when his manager said something that pierced deeper than criticism ever had. After missing a crucial deadline for the third time, Daniel overheard his team whispering behind a partition wall. "He's got potential," someone said, "but no spine." Those 3 words followed him home like a ghost. No spine. Later that night, unable to sleep, he walked aimlessly through Kyoto's narrow backstreets until he found himself standing at the entrance of a quiet, aging temple library. He stepped inside seeking silence. Instead, he met the man who would dismantle him. At the far end of the library sat an elderly historian cataloging scrolls by candlelight. The man's energy was unsettling, calm but sharply aware, like someone who could see straight through Daniel's skin. Without looking up, the old historian said, "You look like someone who's been living at 5% of himself." Daniel froze. The man finally turned toward him and introduced himself as a keeper of a nearly forgotten discipline framework created by Feudo Masamune, a 14th century ascetic swordsmith infamous for putting warriors through psychological furnaces instead of relying on technique alone. And then the historian told Daniel something that shattered him. Discipline does not come from passion, it comes from obedience, the kind you don't negotiate with. He described Masamune's method, the threefold furnace, a system used by Yamabushi monks to burn away weakness through obedience, contradiction, and ordeal. He explained that Tokyo University neuroscientists published a study in 2018 showing that consistent micro-obedience strengthens prefrontal control networks responsible for impulse regulation. In simple terms, doing what you say you'll do, repeatedly, without emotion, rewires your brain into something fundamentally stronger. Daniel felt something ancient awaken within him. For the first time in years, he wasn't looking for tips or hacks. He was looking for transformation, and the historian agreed to guide him. But the first stage was designed to break him completely. Stage 1 sounded deceptively simple. Daniel was instructed to repeat a single motion, A sword draw with a wooden bakken, 300 to 1,000 times a day for 14 days straight. No skipping, no excuses, no emotions, only obedience. On day 1, his arms burned. On day 2, his back ached. On day 3, his mind waged war. He complained silently. He bargained. He questioned the purpose. He hated the monotony. He wanted a shortcut. Good, the historian said. That's your ego dying. Harvard's behavioral lab published a study in 2015 showing that extreme repetition doesn't just build mechanical skill. It strips away the mental noise that clouds your identity. It reveals the core operating system beneath your habits. As Daniel crossed the halfway mark, he felt something strange. He wasn't thinking about progress or boredom anymore. He was simply obeying. The motion became mechanical. The resistance dissolved. By day 10, he entered a flow state where time blurred. For the first time in his life, he felt a sense of internal authority. He had given himself an instruction, and he had followed it without negotiation. That was the first gate of discipline. But here's what no one tells you. The moment you make progress, a trap appears, the eternal student trap. The historian warned him. It's the modern sickness where you collect information, books, podcasts, frameworks, but you don't apply them. You mistake learning for mastery. You mistake consumption for discipline. You mistake theory for transformation. It's a trap you fall into every week. You want to feel productive without doing anything painful. Daniel slipped into this trap too. He spent hours researching sword techniques instead of practicing. He read about breathing mechanics instead of breathing. He intellectualized the path instead of walking it. And the historian told him the line that became his cure: knowledge without repetition is vanity. Daniel shut the books, put away the videos, and recommitted to the furnace. Then came stage 2, the phase designed to shatter his rigid identity completely. The historian introduces Daniel to 2 trainers. One master demanded absolute slowness, every motion executed like honey dripping from a blade. The other demanded explosive speed, no hesitation, no preparation, only immediate action. One master insisted on deep, controlled breathing. The other forbade inhaling before a strike. One punished him for being too tense. The other punished him for being too relaxed. Everything contradicted everything else. Daniel felt madness rising. Nothing made sense. No principle stayed stable. This was intentional. You want clarity, the historian told him. But discipline requires the ability to hold contradictions without collapsing. This method mirrored an Oxford study published in 2021, showing that exposure to contradictory problem-solving increases cognitive flexibility, the ability to adapt without freezing, shifting, or panicking. Slowly, painfully, Daniel learned to let go of certainty. He learned to flow between contradictions without resistance. He became adaptable, grounded, and formless, no longer attached to one way of being. And adaptability is the second gate of discipline. Stage 3 was the ordeal, a test that monks once used to measure true formlessness. Daniel was to face 3 opponents back-to-back in a controlled sparring arena. He wasn't told who they were, what they specialized in, or how long he had to endure. His heart thudded, his breath trembled. When the first opponent charged, Daniel panicked and overthought every movement. But then the lessons merged. The monotony of stage 1 and the contradictions of stage 2 fused. Daniel stopped thinking. He started responding. The second opponent forced him off balance, but he adapted without resistance. The third tested his endurance, but he remained calm, precise, and centered. He wasn't perfect. He wasn't flashy. He was simply present. When the test ended, Daniel didn't feel victorious. He felt quiet, still, dangerous. But transformation doesn't end with a test. It shows itself in the world that once swallowed you. When Daniel returned to his life, everything felt different, not because the world had changed, but because he had, and the world could feel it. Colleagues avoided direct eye contact. Old friends mocked his new habits. Family members said he was taking things too seriously. You've experienced this too. When you finally become disciplined, others feel exposed. Your presence becomes a mirror reflecting everything they aren't doing. It scares them. That's the third gate of discipline. Your transformation forces others to confront themselves. The historian warned Daniel that the furnace wasn't only for monks or warriors. It applies everywhere. If you're learning guitar, you don't need inspiration. You need 1,000 deliberate chord transitions a day until your fingers bleed less than your excuses. If you're learning to code, you pick one bug and debug it 50 different ways. Contradiction training until your mind bends instead of breaks. If you're building a business, you commit to 30 days of daily outreach. Ego death through rejection, consistency over comfort. And in every one of these examples, the principle is the same. You become dangerous the moment you stop negotiating with yourself. But here's what no one tells you. You keep waiting for discipline to feel good. It never will. You keep waiting for a moment when you feel ready. It will never come. You keep convincing yourself you're trying, but deep down you know you're just delaying the life you're capable of living. You don't lack talent, you lack self-respect. You break promises to yourself that you would never break to anyone else. And you call that normal. Every day you repeat this cycle, you are shrinking, softening, dimming. The question is simple. How many more years are you willing to waste pretending you're trying? The historian gave Daniel one final charge before they parted ways, a 6-step structure forged from Massamune's furnace. First, choose one micro-action and repeat it daily without excuse. Second, remove emotion from obedience. Execute the action whether you feel like it or not. Third, seek contradiction training weekly to expand your adaptability. Fourth, introduce controlled discomfort so you never lose your edge. Fifth, measure only consistency, never intensity. And sixth, create a personal test every 30 days, a challenge that reveals whether you're still negotiating with weakness or crushing it. Oxford's research on cognitive transformation confirms it. You don't become disciplined by fighting your impulses endlessly. You become disciplined by designing an environment where obedience is automatic and excuses have nowhere to hide. If you follow these 6 steps, your discipline won't just improve. It will terrify people. It will terrify you, because you'll realize how much of your life you've been living on mute. You'll understand that discipline isn't just a skill, it's a weapon. And when wielded correctly, it can forge you into someone unrecognizably powerful. So now, declare your starting point. Comment the one weakness or skill you will attack with the 3-fold furnace, because your new life begins the moment you stop negotiating with your old one.